Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Before starting the video, please subscribe and keep watching for more details videos. Coco Gauff's former coach says the ATP Tour should definitely introduce a new rule that the WTA already have. The ATP and WTA Tours are not always aligned on their rules for the same tournaments. There have previously been talks of a potential merger between the ATP and WTA Tours in the past, but that is yet to come to fruition. Tennis is regularly told to make alterations, with doubles world #1 Taylor Townsend recently requesting 2 changes to be made. After watching goings-on at the Cincinnati Open, the ATP Tour have specifically been asked to introduce a new rule. Brad Gilbert calls for the ATP Tour to introduce a heat rule. Heat has been a huge factor at the Cincinnati Open this year, with temperatures regularly exceeding 30 degrees Celsius, 86 degrees Fahrenheit. This has caused players to really struggle, including Frenchman Arthur Rinderknecht collapsing to the floor in his match against Felix Auger-Aliassime. The WTA Tour allows a heat rule break between the second and third sets when the wet bulb globe temperature, WBGT, reaches or exceeds 30.1 degrees Celsius, 86 degrees Fahrenheit, similar to the rule that was also seen at Wimbledon this year. However, this is not something that is currently implemented for the ATP Tour. There have been no mid-match withdrawals in the WTA event at the Cincinnati Open this year, whereas in the ATP event there have now been 5 players who have had to retire, mostly due to the heat. After watching more players struggle, Coco Gauff's former coach Brad Gilbert has called for the ATP Tour to introduce a new rule. There isn't a heat rule, I believe, at a tour level. The WTA has something that there is 10-minute UTA break after 2 sets should definitely be something if too extreme no play, like they have in Melbourne, or if over heat index 10 minutes break after 2 sets. What is the weather forecast for the remainder of the Cincinnati Open? Play on Tuesday, August 12th, at the Cincinnati Open was cut short due to rain, and the forecast does not look positive for fans who want to see tennis on Wednesday either. Despite the rain starting to fall, the heat will still remain and is set to reach over 30 degrees Celsius per 86 degrees Fahrenheit for 5 of the remaining days of this year's Cincinnati Open. Day. Highest forecast temperature. Wednesday, August 13th. 29 degrees Celsius / 84 degrees Fahrenheit. Thursday, August 14th. 30 degrees Celsius / 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Friday, August 15th. 31 degrees Celsius / 88 degrees Fahrenheit. Saturday, August 16th. 33 degrees Celsius / 91 degrees Fahrenheit. Sunday, August 17th. 34 degrees Celsius / 93 degrees Fahrenheit. Monday, August 18th. 33 degrees Celsius / 91 degrees Fahrenheit. The hottest day is predicted to be Sunday, August 17th, which will see both the ATP and WTA singles take place. However, only the WTA players will currently be allowed to take a break if they go to a third set, whereas the ATP semifinalists will be left to struggle. The sound of a second voice. Why the ATP should listen to the WTA. When Coco Gauff lifted her first Grand Slam trophy in front of a roaring crowd, the cameras didn't just zoom in on her tearful joy or the shiny gold hardware. They also caught fleeting glimpses of her support box, her parents, her team, and one of the quiet architects of her success, her former coach. Coaching in tennis has always been a strange dance. In a sport that prides itself on the lonely duel, 1 against 1, gladiator versus gladiator, the idea of outside help can feel like a violation of an ancient code. But rules evolve. The game changes, and Coco Gauff's former coach believes it's time the ATP catches up. If the WTA allows in-match coaching and it's helping the game, helping the players, and helping the fans understand what's happening, then the ATP should definitely consider it too, he said recently, stirring a fresh debate in the tennis world. The WTA's rule permitting limited in-match coaching has been in place for several years now, with various iterations: coaching from the box, headset coaching, and on-court coaching during changeovers. It's been met with both applause and criticism, but perhaps the strongest case for it is not made by words, but by the rise of players like Coco Gauff, young, talented, and shaped by a system that doesn't pretend greatness happens in isolation. Chapter 1. The Old World. For decades, tennis has marketed itself as a sport of singular struggle. A player steps onto the court alone. No substitutions. No timeouts. No huddles. Even in team competitions like Davis Cup or Billie Jean King Cup, the emphasis remains on individual grit. The ATP Tour, the governing body of the men's professional circuit, has largely upheld this purist ideal. Coaching during matches has traditionally been banned. Players must think, adjust, and fight alone, even when unraveling. But how real is that solitude? For years, cameras have caught coaches muttering advice, sending signals with hand gestures or facial expressions. Some players openly admit to receiving illegal coaching. Others get penalized for it. The line between rules and reality has blurred. And for many, the old world is starting to feel outdated. Chapter 2. The WTA Experiment. In contrast, the WTA has leaned into evolution. Since 2008, they've tested different forms of in-match coaching. At first, it was on-court coaching. A coach could come down during changeovers, mic'd up for television. Fans could hear the strategy, the encouragement, the tension. Then came coaching from the player box, introduced more widely in 2022. Coaches could speak discreetly during matches. While some traditionalists winced, many fans found it refreshing. Coaching is part of every sport, said a WTA official. Why should tennis be the exception? The experiment showed that allowing limited coaching didn't ruin the sport, it humanized it. Fans gained insight into tactics. Players felt supported, and matches gained narrative depth. A struggling player turns things around after a key phrase from a coach, or a coach miscalculates, leading to a collapse. Chapter 3. Coco, the prototype. Coco Gauff didn't become a champion by chance. Her rise was carefully nurtured. She had talent, yes, but also structure, strategy, coaching. At 15, she announced herself to the world by defeating Venus Williams at Wimbledon. But the breakthrough wasn't just emotional, it was technical. Her team had prepared her for that match. They studied Venus's game, built a plan, and gave Coco the tools to execute it. Over the years, Gauff benefited from both the WTA's openness to coaching and the collaborative approach of her team. In a crucial U.S. Open semifinal, her coach shouted tactical advice from the box. She turned the match around. The moment was legal. It was also pivotal. Her former coach, reflecting on that journey, made a clear point. Without that ability to guide, to communicate, to make small course corrections, we might not be talking about a Grand Slam champion. Chapter 4. The Men Who Struggle in Silence. Now consider the other side. On the ATP Tour, some of the most dramatic meltdowns have come from players trapped in their own heads. Stefanos Tsitsipas, known for long bathroom breaks and philosophical confusion, often glanced helplessly at his father coach. Novak Djokovic, at times, has appeared visibly frustrated when unable to receive signals from his box. Alexander Zverev, Daniil Medvedev, the list goes on. Even Rafael Nadal, the ultimate warrior, was once penalized for receiving signals from Uncle Tony, who later admitted that everyone does it. Is the rule really promoting integrity, or just forcing coaches and players to communicate covertly? Chapter 5. The Human Element. People forget that tennis players are human, said Coco Gauff's former coach in an interview. They get anxious. They overthink. Sometimes they can't see what's obvious from the outside. A coach doesn't play the match for them. They just help them stay on track. He compared it to a pilot flying with a co-pilot, or a surgeon working with a medical team. Great athletes still need feedback, especially in high-stakes moments. Allowing coaching doesn't eliminate the mental battle. It doesn't turn tennis into team sport, but it adds a second voice, and sometimes that voice is the difference between spiraling and surviving. Chapter 6. The Critics. Of course, not everyone agrees. Roger Federer, before retirement, once argued that coaching undermines the authentic nature of the sport. You should figure it out yourself, he said. That's what makes tennis special. Others warn of inequality. Wealthier players can afford better coaches, while lower-ranked ones might struggle. More coaching could deepen the divide. And then there's the slippery slope concern. If you allow verbal coaching, what's next? Headsets? Mid-match substitutions? The soul of tennis, critics argue, is its solitude. Coaching might enhance drama, but at what cost? Chapter 7, The Turning Point. But tennis, like any sport, evolves. Serve and volley gave way to baseline rallies. Wooden rackets became graphite. Hawkeye replaced line judges. Change doesn't mean betrayal, it means adaptation. If the ATP were to adopt a version of the WTA's coaching rule, it could be limited, structured, and transparent. Only verbal coaching during changeovers. No midpoint interruptions. No on-court visits unless in specified tournaments. Fans would understand more. Players would benefit. And the game could retain its integrity while embracing modern reality. Chapter 8, The Future. At Wimbledon 2030, imagine a tense 5-set final. The crowd leans in as a 20-year-old upstart faces off against an aging legend. During a changeover, the coach leans forward, offers 5 quiet words, and sits back. The player nods. He returns to the court with renewed clarity. And the final set becomes a masterpiece, not because of the coach, but because of the player who executed it. That's the future Coco Gauff's former coach envisions. A game still defined by individual brilliance, but supported, shaped, and sharpened by human connection. Tennis doesn't lose its soul when it allows a second voice. Sometimes, that's how it finds it.